Merlin Sports.
Hey everyone, this is Fenomena of Merlin Sports, and with me today to break down the NFC wildcard weekend is Ddawg. Ddawg, how are you doing, my friend?
Holler, I am good. Getting ready for this NFL playoffs. I can't even believe it's here.
Yeah, what an amazing regular season, and just like the surprises we saw in the AFC with the young upstart teams, kind of upending some of the old guard. We've seen that in the NFC as well, with the Seattle Seahawks claiming the number one seed, and we knew Seattle was probably going to be good, but number one seed good. I don't think many people thought they would be as good as the number one seed.
Sam Darnold's shifting power to the NFC West. That's basically what happened. He gets out of the NFC North and is it Minnesota drops off a bit. I think it's not surprising, and Detroit was a big shock in terms of them going down, but
Yeah.
So they snuck up, and Mike McDonald's just done a phenomenal job over there in Seattle.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about the matchups as we head into wildcard weekend. We have some intriguing matchups. So Seattle gets the bye, as we just mentioned, as the top seed. So that leaves us with the Rams as the fifth seed, and they will take on Carolina, who somebody had to win the NFC South and ended up being Carolina. Didn't look like that many teams were willing to step forward and win it, but Carolina's when the dust settled. Carolina was the one that won that division. We have a couple of great matchups. We have the San Francisco 49ers, the 6th seed, heading into Philly to play the defending Super Bowl champions, who ended up the 3 seed. And the final NFC wildcard matchup has the Green Bay Packers, who finished with the 7th seed, going into Chicago, another surprising division winner as the number 2 seed. So why don't we start with this Green Bay and Chicago matchup? And who had that on their bingo card? Chicago taking NFC North over the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings, right? So that was pretty crazy. And one of the good storylines this year is just, there were many surprises this year, and I think Chicago winning that division and seeing the development of Caleb Williams and also the Ben Johnson, right? Like the offensive genius from Detroit, making his mark his first year as head coach in Chicago. So how do you think this matchup's going to play out?
This is an interesting matchup of all of them, because this is the first time these two teams are actually playing a playoff game. Surprisingly, for the tradition that they have never, if I'm not mistaken, they've never hosted or played against each other in the playoffs. So it's interesting. Both teams, to me, I see are limping into the playoffs. Specifically, Green Bay. Jordan Love hasn't played the last few weeks. They haven't played or won a meaningful game in I think about 5 weeks. And they're coming in. They're coming in. Let me just confirm that
they're coming in on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, right. So I don't see them. You just can't turn on the switch, right? I don't care what anybody says. You just can't turn on the switch. So and they haven't had a good road record. Chicago, they are the upstart team. They're coming in and losing the last 2, but they're at least they have a good home record. They're fairly comfortable. Caleb Williams had a very good sophomore season. His rookie season was inconsistent, but he's come back with a good sophomore season. And so I suspect that the Bears, they can score points. Green Bay has a good defense, but their offenses look sluggish. A couple years ago when they played Dallas in the playoffs, they just walked through Dallas. They were on a high. Jordan Love had found his rhythm. He doesn't have that right now. Ben Johnson, obviously, you could see the damage that Detroit suffered by not having him there. It's not entirely all the fact that he wasn't there, but he's a very good play caller. He's found a rhythm with Caleb Williams. Chicago can score points. The problem with Williams has always been, even in his college years, as good as he was, he can turn the ball over. But the Packers gave up, not too much, but enough for Micah Parsons, and he's out. He's out for the season. He tore out his knee. So that's a big loss for the Packers on defense because he wreaks havoc everywhere. They still have some good players on defense in Rashawn Gary and stuff. But you can't limp into the playoffs and then say, oh, let's turn the faucet on and we can get everything back to normal. So I like the Bears. It's going to be a sluggish game, probably 17-13. I don't think it's a high scoring game. I think there's going to be a kind of sluggish, ground and pound. The field's going to be messy because it's Soldier Field. It's cold in Chicago, and it's cold in Green Bay. So the elements won't bother either team. But I don't see a high scoring game, and I see the Bears pulling it out because I think they have just enough. They have a little bit more, and they're a little bit more in sync and within rhythm with what they want to do. They've coasted it the last couple of games. They didn't have to win them because they already clinched the division. But I just don't see how you turn it on.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, yeah, it's got the making of a grinded, kind of a black and blue game. And this is an NFC North matchup. These two teams, they split the season series, one game apiece, and actually Green Bay should have swept Chicago this year, but Chicago had that kind of dramatic fourth quarter comeback. They recovered an onside kick and they won in overtime. So otherwise, Green Bay would have took that game as well from Chicago. So. Yeah, the loss of Micah Parsons, I think, really hurts Green Bay's defense. With Micah Parsons there, I would give Green Bay a decided edge. Part of it is because the experience, right? The playoff. This is where the playoff experience will show. Caleb Williams will be his first time in the playoffs, and they'll be, they're at home, so they'll have home field. And you had mentioned that sometimes he gets erratic and he hangs onto the ball for too long, right? And that kind of leads to turnovers, as you mentioned. That also crept up in his college career as well, right? And when you have like a disruptor like Micah Parsons chasing you, that amplifies that sort of character flaw. Without him there, it's going to be much tougher for the Packers. The Bears, as we also mentioned, they lost their last 2 games of the regular season, and Green Bay's lost their last 4 games of the regular season. Having said that, we're saying some of the negatives against Green Bay, mainly around health. I think they are expected to have Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs back in the mix. And definitely the Bears are the upstart team, and we saw Ben Johnson's influence on the team. Like, some of the play calling was at times pretty creative with Chicago, and Chicago just had that. I don't want to say if they had like luck on their side, but they just they made the most of their chances. I'll just say that, because saying that they were lucky is kind of a disservice to them. Having said all that, I'm going to side with the Packers on this one. I think the playoff experience is going to show, and that resting their players and this is what it's for, right? Rest your players so that you can go all in the playoffs. And I think this will be a close ground and pound type of game. And I like the Packers to pull this out. I say that this game will end up being decided by a field goal, and the Packers pull it out. Like a 17-14 or 16-13 type game, NFC North, black and blue type game. So that's how I see this game playing out.
Yeah. Well, I see us both agreeing that it's going to be a close, very mucky game. It's going to be grinding. It's not going to be, an up and down, high scoring football game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to our next matchup, which pits the San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is an interesting matchup. Of course, I think these teams met a couple of years ago in the NFC Championship game. Actually, when I thought that San Fran was controlling that game till they ran into quarterback injuries, and that allowed the Eagles to close them out. But I think it's kind of a little bit of a different 49ers team from even 2 or 3 years ago. And in spite of some serious injury issues this year, 49ers had a solid year. They were in contention for the number 1 seed. And they just kind of fizzled out in their last game against Seattle. Very low scoring game. And Seattle's Seattle has a great defense. I think that with Sam Darnold being sort of a feel good story for Seattle, I think their defense was kind of overlooked how good they were this year. The reason I mentioned that is 49ers are going to face another really good defense in the Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of similar to Seattle and in numbers wise. Philly rested its starters in week 18. Now that cost them the number 2 seed, but they were content to rest up, and whoever they play, right? And that's kind of mentality like of a veteran team. We feel like we can beat anybody, and we don't care who we play. We're going to prioritize health of our players over that. And I think you're going to see the Eagles coming up big on defense. You don't know what you're going to get with the Eagles offense. That's my only concern, is that week to week, it just seems like they're so inconsistent. Some weeks they don't know whether they want to run the ball. Like last year, it was more clear cut. It was Saquon Barkley, and then when you stack the box to try to stop Saquon, then you light them up in the passing game. But this year, I think they just struggled to find their identity on offense, and that's what prevented the Eagles from having an elite year. I mean, they still had a good year. I think their defense carried them this year, and I think that San Fran, just seeing how they matched up against Seattle and they had trouble scoring, I think that they will have a similar trouble against the Eagles defense. And I think that the Eagles will pull this one out. San Fran is still missing Joey Bosa and Fred Warner, right? They're two of their better defensive players are still out. So I think this is a game where they will be severely missed. So I said Joey Bosa, I meant Nick Bosa. Of course, his brother. They're brothers, so sometimes I get them confused.
Joey plays for Buffalo. He's out for the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I just think that this will be a good game to watch. It'll be very, very interesting. Because of course You have Shanahan as the coach in San Fran, and I like, watching him and how he prepares his team. So they'll be well coached. And Nick Sirianni's kind of more of a wild card. He's a little bit erratic. Even he winning the Super Bowl last year. There's still questions about his coaching style, but he proved he can win the Super Bowl. So no one will be able to take that away from him. I give San Fran the coaching advantage, and I just think that they will fall short and the Eagles will pull this one out. I'll probably say that this will be a 3 to 7 point victory for the Eagles when it's said and done. Eagles are favored by 4.5 points in this one. So how are you thinking about this matchup?
Yeah, San Fran, Seattle, and Los Angeles were part of the best division in football. All three teams are 12-5 or better. Obviously, Seattle won the division. These are two teams that, on paper, they look really good, right? They have good defenses. They have explosive playmakers on offense. But like you said, San Fran held Seattle to 13 points and still lost. They scored 3 points. And their team really relies a lot on Christian McCaffrey offensively. Greg Kittle's still there, but he's nursing injuries. This is a pretty banged up San Francisco team. Now, how healthy do they get going into this is going to be interesting. They have to go to Philadelphia. It's going to be a little colder than you get in the Bay Area, and actually playing in Santa Clara, so it's even a little bit warmer. But I don't know what you're going to get out of Philadelphia too, right? Last year, you mentioned it. Saquon was awesome last year. To me, he was the MVP of the league. He didn't get it, but he was the best player in the league last year. But this year, he hasn't been the same guy. They've had a lot of problems. They've had struggles with Jalen Hurts, struggles with the receivers complaining about not getting the football. But now they're in the playoffs, right? And they're the defending Super Bowl champions. So until you knock them off, you got to deal with them. And marginally, I like Philadelphia a little over San Francisco. They're healthier. They have, they still have a solid defensive core. They got playmakers at all three levels. So they'll be able to get after Brock Purdy. And if you get after him, you can force him into mistakes. He's not as fleet-footed as Jalen Hurts is. Philadelphia can always go back to, Jalen Hurts on the ground along with Saquon Barkley, whereas San Francisco relies heavily on Christian McCaffrey. They can't spread it out as easily, and if McCaffrey's injured, or he's right, or they make him ineffective, then their offense is going to show. I don't think San Francisco can score to win this game. That's where I think Philadelphia wins this game. Is they'll be able to score points. This isn't they have a good. San Francisco has good defense. Philadelphia has a good defense. Philadelphia has a good line, and the games are usually won in the trenches, especially when the weather's not as nice. And we haven't had a calm winter. Let's just say it's been a rough winter, in the Northeast. So San Francisco's gonna have to deal with that weather. So I like Philadelphia, but I think it's gonna be a very close game. I don't see that. I think it's gonna be 20 to 17, 20 to 13, 2014 kind of thing. I think it's a one-score game. I don't see any team blowing the other team out. I think it's a very tight game. But I like the Eagles to hold on to the Super Bowl championship for one more week.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're both in agreement there. That brings us to our last matchup, which has the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers, and the Rams are favored by 10 points on the road. So this is the biggest spread, which would indicate this is the biggest mismatch of the week. I mean, I don't. I'd have to look far back to recall a road favorite of 10 points or more. But it's just Carolina finished 8-9, and they get to play a home playoff game just because of how the playoffs are structured. So I mean, I'll just say it for what it is, right? This should be a mismatch on paper. But I will say this. These teams did play this year, and Carolina actually won the game against the Rams. Now that was an upset when it happened. The Rams committed 3 turnovers that game, including 2 interceptions from Matthew Stafford. So, this is not a gimme that Rams are just going to go in and overpower Carolina, because you could have a bad game. You turn the ball over no matter how good you are. That's going to affect your ability to win. Since that game, which is 4 weeks ago, the Panthers finished the season 1-3, and they still won the division. So, but I look at this as, okay, Rams are the better team. They're the more experienced team, basically everywhere up and down the lineup. This is good for Carolina, just, for experience. They get to host a playoff game. They get Bryce Young some playoff experience. They got that whole roster, which is pretty young, some playoff experience. So this is good towards building for the future in Carolina. But I expect that the Rams are not going to make the mistakes that they made a few weeks back. And I think they will overpower Carolina in this one. And I see them winning by 2 touchdowns, at least 2 touchdowns in this game. And there's not much to break down. They basically have the positional advantage at every position up and down this lineup. So, what do you think about this matchup?
Well, if you played this game in a neutral site, this wouldn't be even a contest. The Rams are superior in all aspects of it. But you did mention that Carolina beat them earlier in the season. Probably I think it was mid-season, the second half of the season for sure. And
week 13. It was week 13.
Yeah. So they have some confidence going into that game. They play better at home. I think the spread is more indicative of the fact that it's an 8-9 division winner versus a 12-5, second place conference team. And so I like the fact that, that the Rams, they have the capability to play any which way. They have a good running game. Matthew Stafford is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He can fling it around. They got a great wide receiver in Puka Nacua. In theory, they should win, and I think they'll win. But I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. But it's hard to beat a team twice. Number one, even though it's in your own backyard. Carolina doesn't really feel like they have a home field advantage. I'm sure the crowd will be sold out, but they've had struggles drawing crowds, in Charlotte. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think the Rams are too good. I think the Rams were managing once they realized they couldn't win a division. I mean, they could have easily won some of the games they lost this season against San Francisco, against Seattle. They blew a couple games that they probably should have won, and they should probably feel they should have won. So, and like I said, they're a complete team. They got playmakers at every level. They have a solid defense. they've given up points to the defense, but their defense is fairly good. Matthew Stafford is battling for the MVP of the league. I think at last count, I mean, you mentioned Drake May in our last preview, at being up there along with Stafford. I think it's hard for Drake May to win it because he hasn't been there yet. So I think Stafford's probably going to win the MVP. So, but I think the Rams are focused on what they need to do in order to get to the Super Bowl. And this is just managing. This is just a game they have to manage to get through. Sean McVay is a great coach, so he's going to have some different plays for Carolina that he didn't have the last time. And I think they also probably took them a little lightly, right? You say that, but they're psychologically there, but they won't be taken lightly. They're going to be focused on the playoffs. And people forget Philadelphia last year. They won the Super Bowl. But their toughest game was the Rams.
Yeah.
And they barely won that game.
I agree. They were fortunate to win that game.
Right? So the Rams know what it takes to win. They've won a Super Bowl. So great experience for Bryce Young. But you can pressure him. He's a smaller guy. If you can get some pressure on him, you can kind of hit him. He's elusive, but he's small. He's sort of like a Kyler Murray, in that sense. But I like the Rams. I maybe by 10 points. I wouldn't. I don't think by 2 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be that lopsided because I think Carolina plays better at home. So they'll give a better account of themselves. But I like the Rams to win this game.
Okay, so we're in heated agreement there that the Rams will take this game. Sounds like we're both on by double digits. Just the exact amount where we differ on the amount, but should amount to a double-digit win. Okay, well, that does it for our NFC wildcard preview. Thanks again, Ddawg, for joining us this evening.
No problem.
And we'll talk to everyone real soon.